Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 45 of Creative Writers and Illustrators. And my guest for the day is Roopa Pai, who's out with a brand new book. Welcome, Roopa.
Hi. Hi, Shamala. Namaste, everyone. Good evening. I don't know when this will be broadcast. So good day.
So let's start talking about what the book is all about.
Oh, my Yoga Sutras book. Well, first of all, I think the Yoga Sutras are not very well known in India. It's not part of mainstream. It's not definitely not as popular as the texts on which my previous books in the same genre were based, which were there was the Gita for children and then the Vedas, Upanishads for children. Those are names that trip easily off people's tongues, even though they may not know very much about them. They know of them. The Yoga Sutras, I think, not so well known, which is why I didn't know of them either. But when I listened to a talk during the COVID pandemic about them, I was instantly intrigued, and because it was all about controlling your mind, making sure your mind doesn't control you. And during COVID, all of us were letting the mind control us. We were all so full of fear, and it seemed like such a wonderful proposition to be able to conquer fear and tell the mind, no, actually nothing's happening. Nothing's actually happening to you. So don't imagine all these things. So that's why I delved deep into it. I began to read it. It sounded interesting, and it was a short text and everything. And when I began to read, I began to realize that it's really the basis of all peace, contentment, an ability for clarity in thinking can come only when you are in control of your emotions and your mind, and you realize how powerful the mind is especially during the crisis period like the whole world went through. It can make you imagine all kinds of things that don't exist at all. And it seemed to me that if our children and us were able to somehow have some mastery over our minds, we could live a much more peaceful life, calm life, and we would be able to make better decisions. And that's what the book is about, really. Actually, the Yoga Sutras, the original text, there are 4 sections. There is Samadhi Pada, Sadhana Pada, Vibhuti Pada, and Kaivalya Pada. But Vibhuti Pada and Kaivalya Pada, I thought, were perhaps too esoteric for children and even for all of us. It's really meant for yogis who are already at some level of, mind control. So I said we could leave those out. There's enough in these first 2 sections itself to fill a whole book. And I think it will take a couple of lifetimes to even learn how to practice the techniques that Maharishi Patanjali has suggested in the first 2 sections itself. So I decided to focus on that for this book.
Past few books have been around, have focused on the physical, mental, and emotional health of teens. Is that a conscious choice? Do you think that's the way to go forward to navigate through these challenging times? Once you conquer your mind, it's like you can conquer anything.
It may be a subconscious thing, but it's not a conscious thing that I'm trying to write books that help children or young people master, physical, emotional health, mental health. That's not my purpose when I start writing these books, but they become a consequence. When I finish writing them, I realize that, oh, that's what this is really about. The purpose, the thing that really draws me to these kind of texts is something else. And it started with the Gita, which I was so reluctant to get into in the beginning because I felt, it's a living, breathing text in India. I have no credibility. I have no scholarship in Sanskrit or the scripture or anything. I have not spent any time in my life really being immersed in it. And what gives me the right or the authority to try and interpret this text for young people? But when I began to read it, this is the thing about Indian texts, I think. They open themselves up to you, to interpretation, if you just approach them as a student and you just say, I just want to know what you're about. Speak to me. And when you go in with that approach, not with fear, not with intimidation, not with saying, I know what you're about, not with preconceived notions that this is about religion or this is about God, you just go in saying, what is this as a book of literature that has lasted the test of time and is still popular, is still a bestseller, 2,500 years after it was written. What is it? Even as a fellow writer, if you're trying to see what makes a book so compelling, what did Vedavyasa put into it that makes it so compelling? So once I started reading Gita and loved it so much, then, the thing is, these texts are like that. They open a portal in your mind into something, and you are so dazzled by what lies beyond that you keep walking down that path. Then some other portal opens, which would not have if you hadn't gone through the first one. And, everything is connected, and you begin to realize that all these various disciplines that you are thinking you're writing different things, and they're all actually the same and at their core and whatever. So it's very addictive. And that's why I write them, not so much. And then, of course, you realize that it's more for myself that I write them than for my audience. But once I've started writing them, I say, and I start talking to my children about it in my research. When they come home, I talk to them about, what this, and then I begin to realize that there is so much wisdom in each of them that could apply, not just to teenagers, to everybody. It's just that I write for children. That's my preferred thing. And therefore, my tone and my language is like that. I do enjoy the company of children very, very much. I do read children's books more than any other kinds of books. So it's naturally, it comes out like that. Like, I wanted to be a teacher. People ask me sometimes, if you weren't a writer, what would you have been? And I say, I think I would have been a teacher, because I love, demystifying a complex concept, getting to the heart of it, and seeing that the student or child's face light up when they say, aha, that's what it is, oh, okay, I get it. So I like doing that. That's what gives me joy. And that's why it feels as if my books are, that I'm trying to write something for teenagers, but it's really, I'm writing it for myself. It's what I'm telling myself. This is what you need to do. So, yeah.
Gita has been a bestseller. I've heard schools pick up bulk copies for their entire high school. And I haven't heard such a phenomenon happening with any children.
Yeah. That's true. Even, I of course did not expect that at all. I was expecting, there'd be a lot of critical feedback about, like, how can you trivialize, although that was not my attempt at all. I was not even trying to trivialize it in any way. In fact, I very consciously did not do that, did not contemporize it to that extent that Arjuna and Krishna were calling each other bro or dude. No, that was not the point. But still, you never know, because people, the Gita is very dear to a lot of people, and they hold it in such high esteem, and they relate to it in different ways. And then they get upset if somebody else relates to it in a different way. So it was always a bit fraught, but it turns out that it has appealed to everyone. So yeah, didn't have to.
Your second POV has really worked in this book. So again, it's something you keep in mind because you happen to be a parent. You know what works and connects with teens, and there's just no other way to, get them.
What do you mean by second POV, Shamla?
Second point of view. You're addressing to the reader directly, saying you. It says a private conversation you are having with the reader.
Yeah.
And it's
like, why do I do that?
Come with me. I'm on this journey. Join me and discover this.
Yes. But it really is like that, because it's not that I already have some prior knowledge of the Yoga Sutras and I know it, I will teach you. I'm going on it myself. I don't know anything about it too. And as soon as something appears to me like, oh my God, like epiphany happens, I have to put it down and tell the reader, come see, just see what I found. And what you said, I don't know how many people have told me over how many years that it feels like you're in the room with me having a conversation, So that's, again, it's not a conscious thing. This is just how I approach new subjects. And I think that is why I pick up different subjects to write about, because I want to feel that joy of wonder of discovery. And usually I pick up subjects that I don't know very much about, so that I'm having these pop aha moments, and I'm able to convey them. Perhaps, yeah.
So in the book you say, if I know that you don't say it, but there's a quote you put, if I don't know it, does it even exist? Right? And then you go on to say that it's important to expand our awareness through reading, observation, conservation, and reflection. I think that's a very important message for a generation which is just fed too much, bombarded with information, and just don't know how to deal with all that's happening around them.
Yeah. It's and at a very, very literal level, the awareness has become so tunnel vision into their devices. Their awareness has become limited, like blinkered to what is going on here. Very rarely, if you look at it very, very literally, so rarely do they lift their head and look around them to see what else is happening. And we all know of phenomenon which even the young don't know how to explain. They are also, they don't like it very much themselves, that they all get together as a group of friends, sit around a table for dinner or whatever they've got together, and each of them is on their phones. You are surrounded by people that whose company you enjoy, and still you are in conversation with somebody else who is not there, and they also realize it, and they're a bit annoyed by how this is happening to them. And that for me is the biggest illustration of your mind being controlled by something else. That if you yourself feel frustrated about it, that means it's only when we are out of control of something that we feel very helpless and frustrated. And that's the emotion, I think, that I sense a lot from young people, like a lot of helplessness, a feeling of scatteredness and frustration because they feel they're not in control of anything. And that's why they get so upset when something happens to somebody in some other country, some injustice, and here they're getting so upset about it, which is good. I mean, to be empathetic is all good, but there is so much to be empathetic about around you in your own space where you can have an impact and you can change the life of of people around you. But you are letting your mind get roiled with churning and upset by something that's happened so far away, over which you have absolutely no control and can do nothing about. Here you actually can do something. So what was your question? Yeah, so that is why to expand awareness is, I think, I mean, it's just a code, it's a code word, it's a blanket term for expanding awareness about everything, about the people around you in a very literal sense, who's around you, what's your environment, what's happening, is there any danger to someone, something, just, or even if you could go back to a Sherlock Holmes kind of, just observing things, and then noticing when there is a change, your radar is up, it begins to vibrate when something is off. And this can be to figure out whether a burglar has entered your house, or it can be to figure out the emotions of a friend. There's something off, and what could it be? And or even to figure out why you are disturbed. And in the ultimate thing, it should be to look into yourself and find out to become aware of you as something that is not a product of all the information, all the stimuli you're being fed, but as something separate from them. To understand who you truly are, I think that becomes the challenge, really, especially when there's such sensory overload. And it never stops. Like when we were young, television, first of all, we didn't have television. Then the television, then Doordarshan came, there was one channel, and it would end at a particular time of day. It would only start at a particular time, maybe 7 to 10 or something in the evening. And then, that whole ritual of unlocking the doors of the TV and opening and at the end, you close it, lock it. Now there is no other stimulation. Now you either create your own stimulation by reading or something, or you just let it be, go to bed. There's nothing else. That kind of pause is not there at all. And you don't have to pay. There's no barrier at all. You don't have to pay for content. It's always there, and 24/7, and so many to choose from. And that horrible concept called infinite scroll. They're not your friend. It's not even your friend's posts. Okay, at least you have 25 friends or 150 friends. Then 150 posts you've seen and it's over. No, then it feeds you things from people that are not your friends, from celebrities. So you have to very, very consciously put that aside. That takes a great effort of will now, to put it aside and sit with yourself and think about who you really are, or what you really want. What am I doing with my time? Because we're all saying, where did the time go? Where did the time go? Because we say, well, we just started looking at Instagram and 2 hours are gone. Where did it go? So it's kind of like a really weird, surreal world that we live in. But it only requires you to step back a little and that world disappears. So it's as much about, of course, if you don't know it, if you don't know it exists, does it truly exist? That is one thing. But it's also true that if you consciously and voluntarily shut the door on something, it stops existing. Again, the other way is also true. So if you actually say get off a social media app, then all the stuff that's happening there is gone from your life. It doesn't exist. Maybe things are happening, maybe people are going on holiday, but if you don't know about it, it doesn't exist. And then it gives you the space and the quiet and the time to go into yourself a little bit. Yeah.
Goes around and again comes back to mind control.
Yeah, it has to. It has to. Yeah.
It was really amazing for me to discover that there are different types of yoga for different people with different states of mind. And there's the Dhyana yoga, the Karma yoga, the Bhakti yoga, and the Jnana yoga,
Organic.
It's so amazing that the ancient texts had actually, thought about all these things much ahead. It's now that with science and so many studies, they kind of slot bracket people like, yes, this is your state of mind, analyze and all that, and to think, oh my God, these people were just like Gyanis, they'd already thought, they'd already analyzed, and they've given us solutions. Which I think, thanks to people like you, it's being passed on that you don't need to look elsewhere. We have it all in our own ancient texts.
Yeah. No, that is true. That I think that part where you said, there's Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, that illustrates a very basic, fundamental virtue or aspect of all Indian philosophy, ancient Indian philosophy. It is inclusive. It's the most inclusive thing. It never says that if you are not doing it this way, then there's something wrong with it. You have to do it my way, or it's wrong. This is the right way, this is the wrong way. Not at all, never. And this happens again and whichever. If you take a text of medicine also, it's of ancient Indian text of medicine also, say something like Ayurveda, it will not tell you to prescribe the same thing for everybody's headache. It will ask you to interview the patient extensively to find out what could be causing this particular headache. Is it because of a lifestyle stress thing, or is it because of something actually like a tumor in the brain? So, and then you prescribe a medication, and sometimes the medication may be something like take a holiday and your headache will go away. Get a massage, sit in get an Ayurvedic, sit in meditation. So it's everything about ancient Indian philosophy and thought has been about customizing things for it. It's very, very, it acknowledges that every individual is very different, that people are not equal at all. So this very blanket thing of we are all equal, the Indian texts don't say that. We are all very different. We are not equal. Some of us have some abilities, some of us have others. We're not equal. However, everyone should be given equal opportunity, should be seen as holding the same divine essence. In that sense, we are all equal only. But we have to acknowledge that people are embodied. They're in certain bodies. They come, if we accept Indian philosophy, it is about, that people have come through different lifetimes to this one, and they're carrying the impressions of their previous lifetimes. They have gone through certain experiences that have fashioned their minds, which will in turn fashion their emotions. And acknowledging that everybody is different, we will then create a space, an inclusive space where everybody is welcome, whatever your propensities, whatever your proclivities, and we will validate each of these different ways to the truth. We will not say this only is right. In the Gita, Krishna, tells Arjuna, he's like, but I also want to be like a yogi, I also don't want this war, I want to go away. And Krishna says, but that's not your nature. You have to think about who you are and what you truly are. And once you realize this is my nature, your best interest lies in acting according to your nature. That is the only thing that will bring you happiness and calm and a certain measure of peace. Because, and I think that's a powerful idea, the fact that the most of our stress comes from not being in alignment with our true nature. If we are doing something and saying something because somebody else expects us to do that, or this is the conditioning that we have, that girls should behave like this, or boys should behave like this, or people of this religion should behave like this, or whatever, then we are just doing it because somebody told us to. We haven't taken the trouble to find out, but what is my heart's, not even heart, I mean in a very, what do I feel is right? And because we are not in alignment with what we feel is right, even though according to ourselves and to everybody else, we're doing the right things, we are good daughters and we are good mothers and we're good everything else according to others, why do we feel so out of such dissonance inside of us? Because clearly we are not acting according to our nature. And if we just align what we think with what we say and what we do, there is no chaos at all in the head. So, and that will come only if you know what you're thinking. If you can take out all the, chaos and what people tell you and what you've been told and what society expects, take out all of that and say, but what do I want? What do I feel? And trust that you are a complete luminous being in itself who knows what is right for you, that you don't have to depend. There's no fear. There's no need to fear and depend on what that person says and this person says. Ask yourself, Krishna, your higher self is within you. You just have to question, find him or her or whatever you want to call it, that voice of reason that is there within you, and it will show you the way. So it's very inclusive. And Krishna says that clearly in the Gita also, that whichever path my devotees take to come to me, they will eventually get to me if they apply themselves with great dedication to that path. There is no better path. He tells Arjuna, don't feel that the path of the yogi or the path of the jnana yogi is better than the path of the karma yogi, which you are. If this is your nature, do it, and through this you will get to me. Don't try to be who you're not. That's also a very important message, and I think that is really important. Yeah, and it shows just how inclusive, that there is no one truth. There are many truths depending on who you are, and all truths are valid. And in a way, what that made me feel, has made me feel since I started researching the Gita and all, is that it just made me far less judgmental of people. Why do they think like that? What, that is wrong, this is wrong? Why? They have different points of view, and everybody is valid. And as long as at their core everybody wants something good, it's fine. The different approaches are fine.
What you say, about alignment, I think that's the most, finding that balance is the most difficult, not just kids, teenagers.
Yeah. Oh, no.
All of us struggle with it.
All of us. Yeah, samsara is a struggle, whether you're a kid or a teenager or you're an old person. My goodness, to find that alignment. Yeah.
So many of the practices and secrets you mentioned in the book again comes back to mind control. And you said, only when you kind of achieve mind control will you be able to navigate the present and the future.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And I think the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali does such a great job of, classifying thoughts into 5 types. I mean, he's so scientific about it. He says, there are only 5 types of thoughts. And the first instinct is, what nonsense. There are thousands of types of thoughts that come into our heads. And then if you just trust him, say, okay, you're saying, let me see, I'll prove you wrong. Or, okay, let's put this to the test. Let me look at all my thoughts and see which one they fall into, which bucket they fall into. You'll realize that he's right. There are no other thoughts. It feels to us that we're all having these wonderfully unique thoughts, but actually they're all can be easily slotted. And once you realize that you are a cliche, I think that sense of aham, ego goes away. You're like, oh, I'm like everybody else. Everybody else has the same thoughts. And that will help to distance yourself from the thoughts. And you say, this is what is going on in everybody's mind. You're nothing very unique. Your trouble or your struggle is not unique. Your misery is not unique to you. And then you begin to realize even more that you are the creator, the architect of your own misery. And once you realize that, you feel very powerful. Because if you can architect, you can create your own misery, you can also create your own happiness. You are that. In that sense, you are all powerful. In that sense, aham brahmasmi, you are God. You can create, whatever you want. So
And destroy too, little things.
And destroy too.
That,
Yeah, and before, like, I mean, or what a silly thing when you have a choice to create happiness or to create misery. Why do all of us so willingly choose misery? It's so it's just I don't, if you start thinking about it like that, you say, why am I doing this to myself? It makes me feel like a victim, and that makes me feel basically I don't want to take responsibility for my own happiness. It's easier to say, because that's hard work. It's easier to say that my circumstances or the people around me, these people are making me unhappy, rather than saying I am making myself unhappy, because the onus of that then is on you. So it's hard.
So I think you've spoken a lot about Yoga Sutras. Let's talk about another book you out with about the Kaban Park. What is your relationship with the with Kaban Park? I know you've done. You still do Bangalore walks, right? Where you've been introducing the history and the beauty of the park, and then you've gone ahead and written a book.
Yeah, in fact, it's the other way around. That it's been almost 20 years since we started Bangalore walks, my husband and I. And we've been talking about Bangalore for so long, and I've written so many books, but I hadn't written a book on Bangalore or any aspect of it. I was talking endlessly about it. And I would not have written this book if my editor Sudeshna had not said that, okay, we are doing a series of books. Speaking Tiger, this is doing a series of books on, instead of doing like city books, which are anyway, as our cities have become so large that it's difficult to say this entire city has this particular personality. No, in fact, every suburb has its own, every little neighborhood, has its own separate identity and personality. So they had started doing books which were deep dives into certain neighborhoods or whatever. So they had some in Delhi, they had done some books in Bombay, and then they hadn't done a book on in Bangalore, on any neighborhood in Bangalore. And she asked me, and then I was like, and I said, what neighborhood? I went crazy thinking about which neighborhood is truly what I want to write about. Do I know enough about one particular neighborhood to write a book about it? And then seeing me struggling, she said, it doesn't have to be a neighborhood in the conventional sense. Maybe you could write about Lal Bagh. And once she said you could write about Lal Bagh, it suddenly came to me that I could write about Kaban Bagh, because there are enough books about Lal Bagh, and Lal Bagh is more like a botanical garden. Its trees are its treasure, and it's been been the preserve of Maharajas and top botanists from Kew Gardens when the British were here. Kaban Park is more like a people's park. Everybody will plant whatever you want. It's like a very more inclusive kind of space, and a more casual, informal space that makes room for everyone in it. And in my life, for me, it has helped me from when I was a little child to when I took my kids there, to now when I take my dog there. Now the kids have left home and gone, and I take my dog there. So it has always called me back. So it stood to reason that I should do a book on the park. And Shamla, once I had finished the book and it was out, and people started writing about it, only then did I realize that it is actually the very first book on the history of Kaban Park. It's the very first book on Kaban Park. Wow. Can you believe that's crazy? But yeah, so this has been and Kaban Park book has been a labor of absolute love. It's just a love letter to the park that has held me for all these years. Yeah.
We are running short of time, so before we go, you started your career writing fiction, Tara Knots. Okay. I was there for the Bombay launch. I remember the grand launch with the mat and the dice and all that, the musty which went along with that. Yeah. And then you've gone into this totally, I'm in peace with my emotions mode, and gone ahead with the Gita, the Yoga Sutras, and the Vedas. And then we'll write the next fiction book for kids.
Yeah, I know. This is what my editor Vatsala at Hachette has been asking me for the longest time. She's like, okay, fine. And she set me up with the Gita first to begin with, I have to say, and to lay blame where it's due. And once she did that, I'm lost. I'm just going down this. And I've also realized that I enjoy writing nonfiction, particularly because it involves research, which actually is my passion. I love to research things. And it's my passion. It's also my superpower. I'm very good at it. I have realized that, I seem to see patterns and connections and stuff, which other chroniclers of the same subject or whatever have missed in some way. So then I see those aha is very, very addictive to me. It's very exciting. And now it feels like fiction would be a chore to write, because I won't have this crutch of data to rely on. I have to rely only on myself. So as you say, I think after Yoga Sutras, I should again go into myself, what I'm preaching to everybody else, and say, like, do away with the crutches and then sit with yourself and see what stories bubble up from inside, from all that you have read. But the other thing is also that Indian children's writing literature right now is so fertile and so vibrant, and there are so many people doing such good fiction, and I think as writers and artists, all of us are trying to teach the same values, but many paths. So people are using the path of fiction, other people are using the path of non-fiction, and I think my chosen path for the last few years has been this path of non-fiction. It suits me. I suit it somehow. But I think we're going towards the same thing. We want to help children become empathetic, expand their awareness, truly see the other person for who they are. So it's the same thing. But just to challenge myself, I think I should write fiction again. And while I was writing Taran, it was a pure joy. I was not at all, I was not difficult at all in that sense. In the sense, it was a challenge which I loved. But now I've become lazy, I feel, I depend on all this other text that already exists. And I enjoy it so much myself, this finding out of new things that is difficult. But I think now I should pause for a bit, let all this stuff that has gone through me in the last so many years, just work itself, synthesize something new, and maybe, I don't know. I'm not promising anything, like I don't promise Vatsala, and no deadlines, no time, but we'll see at some point.
I hope you find your inspiration, and we're looking forward for your next book, and all the best. All the best.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Bye.